All right. We are live.
We are.
This is our 2 cents. I'm Tom Sellers with my ferocious on days co-host Frank Hostica. Frank, how are you?
I'm good. How are you, Tom?
I'm good. And our guest of the evening, some of you know him as Tim Stewart. Most of you know him as Coach Papa. And we are excited and happy to have him here. First, let's get a couple of things out of the way, really just one. And I'm very happy to make this announcement because it's not an announcement I didn't think was going to happen. If you remember back earlier in the year when we started this back up again, I said this was going to be on Thursdays up until our golf league started on Thursdays. And with the shutdown and pandemic and all the craziness that went along with it, I and most of us didn't think there would be a golf season. And as we see things now, there is, and it's going to start next week. So we are in the process of finding another time slot, and we will make that announcement. Stay tuned. Take a peek at the page from time to time. So Frank, tell us how things are going with you.
Well, things are going pretty good. Just checking in on Facebook, and but yes, things are going great. Here in Illinois, they're opening things up a little bit. We're hitting. I'm not sure if this is phase 2, 3, 4, whatever it is, but it's another phase, and they're going to open up some retail and restaurants and so on, and golf courses are back open for foursomes and golf leagues, and that's what we're looking for. So we're going out next week with our Chamber of Commerce Golf League, and but yeah, so I was out today, stopping by, visiting a lot of the local restaurants and retail locations that are chamber members, and getting some information in their hands to get them up and running for this weekend as we relaunch McHenry and get people in the downtown area to do some shopping and some eating and drinking, and of course being merry.
Absolutely.
All that social distance, of course.
Right. Be merry with social distance. I get it. All right. Well, let's jump into things. For those of you out here who watch this, whether it's live or later on, we like to have people on, and we primarily talk about business. And Frank and I were talking about a week or so ago, and we're always going to have those types of guests, but we were like, you know what? There's something just as important to business besides just business skills and business tools and things like that. And one of those things is the stuff that goes on between the ears. And I thought, and we said, who is it we can talk to who has more between their ears than we do? And Frank instantly said, I know a guy. And as soon as he said, I said, I know a guy.
He couldn't make it, so you invited me, right?
Yeah. Unfortunately, he couldn't make it, so then we called Tim.
So we have invited Tim Stewart, otherwise known as Coach Papa. He is a speaker. He is a coach. If you can think of it, he is either doing it or has done it. But one of the reasons that we're having him on the show with us tonight is to talk about things mindset, all things mindset, business mindset, life mindset, this craziness we're living through mindset. He's got a program that I'm aware of. We're going to talk about that a little bit as well. So without me going too much further, please welcome Tim Stewart.
Thank you.
And I'm going to hit the applause button as soon as I find it. If in the meantime, though, please tell our audience a little bit about yourself. And tell us how you went from being Tim Stewart to Coach Papa. That's what I want to know.
Well, it was a long journey. It started on a dark and stormy night. I was born in western Nebraska. Maybe I was hatched, I'm not sure. But I was raised in a small town of about 600 people called Sutherland. I was a state champion 3 out of my 4 years in high school, once in football, twice in track and field. So athletics has always been a big part of my life. But the farm wasn't such a big part of my life. When I turned 18, I joined the United States Army. On active duty, I met April, my wife. We just crossed our 45th year of marriage.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you. We have 3 children, 11 grandchildren. One of those grandchildren is responsible for Coach Papa. James, when he was 6, they decided he was going to play soccer, and I was a former high school soccer coach. I'd taken a couple of years off, and it was assumed I was part of the package.
Okay.
So as I went to the soccer field, I went up to his little soccer coach, and I said, "Look, I can help you, or I can sit over here with all of them and talk about you." And he's like, "No, please help." Well, James called me Papa, so all the other kids just started calling me Coach Papa.
Very nice. And it stuck.
It stuck. At the end of that season, that little team had not won a game in the fall, and we went undefeated in the spring, and the only difference was James and myself. The individuals who ran the organization asked me out for a cup of coffee and said, "Would you consider working for us and becoming a professional coach?" And I said, "Sure." They asked what licenses I held, and they offered to pay for my next level license. So when they sent me down to the state of Illinois licensing program for my national license, they said, "If you have a nickname you go by instead of your real name, just let us know." And when it got around to me, they said Tim Stewart, and they said, "Well, they just call me Coach Papa." And that's kind of how Coach Papa started out. And then along the way, a few people asked for some business coaching or some other type of coaching, and it all came together to the point where now it's wrapped all over my car, and I'm thinking about getting it tattooed right across the forehead.
Well, I know a guy.
I'm sure you do.
A little background: the 3 of us on this show have known each other. I've known Coach Papa for 5-6 years, something like that. I know you and Frank go back a little farther than that, even.
Just a little bit.
And I know, and maybe Frank, you can help us out here. How you and Tim got to meeting and hanging out, and then I've got a story that I've told a million times, but not everybody on this show has heard it.
Well, so I'm postmaster in McHenry, and part of my duty as postmaster is be involved in the community and things like that. So I'm a member of belong to the Chamber of Commerce, and I go to the Chamber of Commerce after our networking events and hang out for a little while, have an adult beverage, shake a few hands, talk to a few customers, whatever. And Tim's at these events, and Tim's at that point in time, you can see little hints of that white hair on the side now. Tim's actually been shaving his head for a few years, but back then Tim had more hair than you got, Tom, and it was snow white.
Wow.
Had big head of hair, and he covered it up with a black cowboy hat.
Very nice.
And but he was always it was black. It wasn't red, white, and blue. But he was always at the front of the room at these Chamber of Commerce events, kind of being the MC, running the events, introducing people, telling a few jokes, just keeping the event moving along. And that's how I originally met him. And of course, Chamber, you start talking, "Hey, what do you do? What do you do?" And networking. "Hey, let's go grab coffee. Let's find out a little bit more about each other and all that." So that was my true introduction to networking, and what you referred to that. I got a guy that's one of Tim's favorite. Tim's got a guy for everything,
right?
Or again.
Yeah, between the two of you guys, I don't think there's anybody within a 6-state region you don't know.
But yeah, so that's kind of how that got started. We became friends, started hanging out at different chamber things, ran into each other at a couple other things, and next thing you know, we're friends. Tim gets to know us. My current wife, Christina, and I are going to get married, and we're trying to decide where we're going to get married and who we want to do the ceremony and so on. And so I said, well, I think Tim's able to do that. So I asked him, hey, Tim, what would it take for you to be licensed and be able to officiate our wedding? And
Money?
he said, I don't know, but I'll find out. And I'll be back in 30 minutes. Says, okay, we're good to go. And he went online and looked up something and took some course, paid some fee, whatever, and got a certificate. So there we are. And since then, of course, we've been friends. Tim's wife, April, and my wife, Christina, are friends. They golf together. We go on vacations together. We bowl together. We do all kinds of things together. We currently have virtual game nights together. So, yeah, we have a lot of fun.
Absolutely. Nice shirt. Good to see you, sir. Glad you could join us. In fact, this story I'm about to tell, you were there when this happened. So my Coach Papa story it goes like this. I had met Tim a couple of times. I think we'd had a cup of coffee and kind of talked over some things. And he says, "Hey, we got on the subject of basketball." I'm like, "Yeah, I played ball in high school." He says, there's a bunch of us that get up on Monday morning, and I don't remember the days now, but it seemed like it was Monday and Wednesday or something.
Monday, Wednesday, and Friday.
Yeah. Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. We go to the local high school at 6 o'clock, and we play basketball. I said, count me in.
6 o'clock a.m.
The first one, right. So I said, absolutely. So I walk in, and I see a bunch of guys my age or thereabouts, and I'm thinking, all right, it's a couple old timers playing a little ball. And we're up at the free throw line and deciding who's going to play on whose side. And I go up and I made my free throw, and I'm thinking, okay, we got 5-on-5. We got a little half court thing. Next thing I know, these guys are going south to the other end. I'm like, what are you doing? We're playing full court. I'm like, full court? There's not one of us here under 30.
Under 50.
Most of us were 50 or better. So I remember that day very well with the amount of cramping I had in my legs by the time I had left. And that was one of my introductions to Coach Papa, who, by the way, is not afraid to take a shot from anyone. All right. Well, and that was kind of fun. I hope we didn't say anything out of line there, Tim, but everything we say here is true. Just ask us. So now I know you do coaching at a lot of different levels. So do you define yourself, or do you see yourself as more of a business coach or a life coach, or how do you define you?
Well, I think I let my clients define me, and let me explain. I started out, I'm a retired infantry officer. I was the senior leadership instructor for the state of Illinois in the National Guard for many years. And I wanted, leadership coaching. I wanted to teach people about leadership, but people wanted business. They wanted to grow their business. So I thought, well, okay, I'll wrap my leadership training into some business coaching, because with my background as a plant manager and in the financial world, I could do that as well. But what I found out was, in almost all the cases of people I worked with, that it wasn't necessarily their business intelligence that was wrong. It was their relationship intelligence, that there was a relationship block somewhere. So quite often, I would have to work on relationship issues first. Maybe it was a spouse, maybe it was a child, maybe it was their own relationship with themselves, their own self-image, before we could get into business topics. Because when you have these relationship blocks, you can't do business. I do a whole presentation on the algebra of relationships, where I show people how important it is to maintain those core relationships at home before you worry about any other relationship. Unfortunately, our society has flipped that. We have a tendency to spend more time on our relationships outside of the home, and thus a lot of relationships at home wind up failing and falling into divorce. If we just spend more time working at home, like we are currently, I think we'd have a
lot of work at home.
The only problem with that is is Mama has a tendency to come upstairs and say, "Hey, you're home. Could you?" Like, so we have set boundaries on that. We've learned how to do that now over the last few weeks, obviously.
Frank, I know you have some questions here as well.
So so it's interesting you bring up the relationship part of it, and a lot of times it's the relationship people have with themselves, and that I find that interesting. So how is it you tell us a little bit about how you go about identifying some of the issues people? Because again, the last thing I want to hear is that I got problems. I do everything right. So how do you go about getting people to see that, yeah, I am the biggest problem in this, or I'm my own roadblock?
For me, as a company commander in the military, as a plant manager in civilian life, as a head coach, a varsity level coach at a high school level, I always had a staff of people. And I was always able to have the ideas and throw them out, and they would go conduct themselves, and they worked out pretty well. When I became an entrepreneur, I had a staff of 3, me, myself, and I. And those guys weren't listening very well. One of those guys, he likes to play games on the phone, and the other one, he chases squirrels all day long. And getting those 3 guys in the same room is sometimes very difficult. So as taking the training that I've used for years, teaching people how to lead others, I've started applying that to teaching people how to lead themselves and understanding how important our self-talk is. How many of us could be thrown in jail for the way we talk to ourselves, right? Slander, court, right? You dummy. And I'm not immune to it. I was in Grapevine, Texas in January of this year before this all shut down. And I was doing a talk at a chamber event down there. And there's a setup I do for self-talk in the beginning that when I get to the portion on self-talk about 10 or 12 minutes later, it really helps people understand it. Well, as I'm preparing for the section on self-talk, I realized I didn't give them my setup. So here I am saying to myself, you dummy, you forgot to tell them about self-talk. So as I'm going into the portion on positive self-talk, I was beating myself up. And we all have a tendency to do that. When we can learn to treat ourselves with greater respect, we will learn to treat others with much greater respect. And it just pays off in spades.
Well, you almost lost me for a second when you talked about the algebra things, because that took me to a bad place. And I still have no idea why A equals X. And I still don't care that much, to be honest with you.
Well, the simple matter of it is, A plus B equals C, me plus you equals a relationship, right? Simple algebra. Any change in me creates a change in the relationship. Any change in you creates a change in the relationship. Now, we have this feeling that if we make a positive change, the relationship's going to get better. What we unfortunately spend more trying to do is change the other person in the relationship. If you just stop doing cocaine in the morning, Frank, we'd have a whole lot better relationship, right? And we spend time trying to
Sorry, I ain't giving that up.
to stop the other people, when in fact, we simply need to work on ourselves to improve the relationship. The problem here lies in the fact that we may think, I may think I need to get in the gym and get stronger and get buff, right? That's a positive change, but my wife might be looking for more quality time. So all I've done is replaced one addiction with another, and I'm still leaving my partner in a disarray. When we understand how important our core relationships is, and here's an example I use quite often, that I'm going to sign $1 million contract. I've met with this guy 4 times, and he is ready to sign the contract, and I'm so pumped about it. As I get to the door, I'm like, honey, go buy a new dress, buy new shoes and a purse that matches them. This is going to be the best night ever. And she looks at me and says, you're not wearing those shoes with those pants, are you? And I'm like, yeah, I'm wearing these shoes with these pants. What are you doing to me? Why are you always getting my head like this? Bam, slam the door, look down, have my house shoes on. Gives me 3 choices. I can go back in and say, honey, thank you for having my back. No guy on this planet is going to do that. Second choice is I'm going to stop at Kohl's on the way to the meeting because Kohl's always has something on sale that'll match the pants that I'm wearing. But I can never wear those shoes home because women look at shoes. And the second I walk in the house with those shoes on, she will know she was right. So from this moment on, I have to wear my house shoes out of the house, change into my business shoes in the car, change out and wear my house shoes back home. Oh my gosh, that's so much work.
That's a lot going on.
Or I'm going to go to the meeting with all this head trash going on up here. That is, you're not going to sign the contract. I got house slippers on. I wear house slippers to a business meeting, $1 million business meeting, and this head trash is going to mess with our mind to the point that we're going to talk ourselves out of the sale. When we can manage our core relationships, when we can have that feeling that we can look down and say, oh, and we can open that door up and say, honey, I was wrong. I thank you for catching that. We will be so much more successful in the business world when we can just take care of our relationships at home.
Great advice. Great advice. And Nate says, great advice, Tim Stewart. We would all concur, would we not? One of the things I want to bring note to here is if you are watching this right now, and if you have watched this at any time prior, you know that we are on 216 the net, and many should know, but maybe some don't, that Tim was actually one of the founders of 216. Had a little show called Two Bald Guys and a Microphone. I had the pleasure a couple of times, as did Frank, of being a guest on that show. So Tim, kind of walk us through that. How did that all fit into the entrepreneurial journey you've been on?
That's when things go wrong, as they sometimes will, and the road you're trudging seems all uphill, when the funds are low and the debts are high, when you want to smile but you have to sigh, when care is pressing you down a bit, don't run to us. We don't give up. Well, yeah, we do. We are two bald
guys and a microphone.
We'll turn that frown. Oh, hold on here. That's me. There we go. But Frank, imagine that, has suggested I should meet this individual by the name of Kent Jones, that we should get together, that we had something in common more than just being bald. Kent and I had, we'd missed each other a few times, and then it was June 14th, 2016, Flag Day. We were over at Black Diamond for a mixer, and I had told them, hey, it's Flag Day. What are you doing to talk about the flag? They're like, oh, it's Flag Day? Can you do something? Well, I just so happened to have. And so, I recited the ragged old flag and did a few other things, and Kent happened to be there. We connected, and we went out for coffee. In coffee, we had come up with the conclusion that we needed to have a radio show. And the name of the radio show, we're both coaches, so Coffee with Coaches, or the Coach's Clutch. There's a plate glass window there, and Kent looked at it and said, how about two bald guys and a microphone? And that launched the radio show over in Harvard, 104.3, I think. I said it like 1,000 times, a radio show. From that, we started having a lot of success, a lot of following, and we thought, why don't we launch our own radio station? And we came up with this guy, and we're both men of faith, and we said, well, why don't we name it after this verse? And this verse got into our minds, and I was talking to someone about how this verse was going to be part of the name of the radio show. And they said, well, what verse was it? And I said, I think it was Proverbs 12:6. And I went home and looked that up, and Proverbs 12:6 says, a liar and a loud mouth who goes around blasting the whole world. Okay, that probably wasn't what we were looking at. We couldn't remember the original verse, but it eventually came down to 21.6. In John 21:6, the fishermen had been out all night catching nothing. And Jesus said, why don't you put the net on the right side of the boat? And with that, the net was full of fish. The story here became that the difference between success and failure is the width of the boat. the decision to make a radio station that would be all positive based, would be all focused on the happy things that are going out in the world. There's enough garbage out there. We've heard for years that you become the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. And I keep getting kicked out for bringing down the average. So I don't like that. But at the end of the day, I think we become the average of the most information that we're listening to. If we're listening to negative information for 10 to 12 hours out of the day, if we're following CNN and COVID-19 and coronavirus this and Donald Trump tweeted this and this and that, and we're just, we're just full of garbage. And the only thing that can come out if we're loading ourselves with this mess is garbage. And the radio station was designed to counteract that, to give people a positive place where they can get up and get a message of encouragement. Ron Hostry joined us right away in the show. Unfortunately, we lost Ron in February to liver cancer, but it was just such a blessing to be part of that show as we got it started. At the end of the day, or at the end of 2019, I made the decision to walk away from the show because what I found out was, while the radio was fun and I felt we were doing good things, my real love is live presentations and the live work. And I made a goal to do 50 presentations in 2019, and I did a little over 70, a lot of them in Texas, Louisiana, and Oklahoma, while maintaining a relationship with the other ball guy. We are still 2 ball guys and a microphone, and we'll get together and let you know it from time to time. And I really have a strong faith and belief in 21.6 to that. So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Very nice. Very nice. So I'm assuming, and I know I've been down this road, a lot of times we ask ourselves, or we hear somebody say, you know what you need to get to the next level, whatever that next level is for you. You need a coach, you need a mentor. And a lot of times, and I'll be the first one to say, the first time I heard, I'm like, really? Like I'm coachable. So my question, Coach, is this. Why is it in my opinion, essential idea to have a coach?
That's a great question, Tom. So what I'm going to look back at you for half a second and say, why did you call me a couple months ago and say, I think we need to start a coaching relationship again?
And I'll tell you the reason. I had gotten to a point that I felt like I was as far as I could get, given my own devices. And one of the things I've learned in my business is I can learn, and I do. I learn constantly, and I can implement, and I do that too. Where coaching comes in is when to implement, how to implement, and how to keep the space between your ears clean. Right?
Well, and I appreciate you saying that. And, we've had an initial talk and we've been working together off and on for some time. The importance of a coach in your life really is, we have to sit back and take a look. Coaching has always been athletic, right? Athletic coaching. What does an athletic coach do? He takes an athlete who's in a particular sport, he reviews this athlete, assesses this athlete, and then decides what this athlete needs to work on, and then builds a set of drills and performance measures around that to help get this athlete or this team to a certain level. The same goes on in business coaching. Now, Bill Gates has a business coach. Michael Jordan had a shot coach. Tiger Woods had a swing coach. Anybody who does something great has some form of a coach in their life. Now, we all can't coach every single person. I'm in a networking meeting in Libertyville that has like 9 different coaches in it. And yet that's still where I get a lot of my clientele from. And all of them do, because personality matters. In my world of coaching, I'm a little bit different in that I work with individuals who are really just starting out. and they're struggling. Maybe they've been downsized, right size, upsized down. They've lost a job. They have a skill, talent, or ability, and they're trying to get started. And that's a group I specialize in. If you're coming to me and you want high level spreadsheets and no, I'm not the guy who's going to do well for you. I'm the guy who's going to, I'm a great back patter. Hey, good job. You're doing great work today. Keep it up. I'm an encourager. I'm an influencer. But when it comes down to the nuts and bolts, there are other coaches who are going to be better at that. And we all kind of understand that. But the importance, and you mentioned it briefly, is the accountability. Frank and I hold each other accountable on many different levels. We've been doing that for a long time. With many of my clients, they struggle with positivity. They struggle with self-talk, self-respect. And I work to bring that level up using tools that I've learned from Noah St. John, from Sean Acor, from Chuck Inman, and so many of the guests that we had on Two Ball Guys and a Microphone or 21-6. I've got all these tools that I can really sit down and assess someone and then say, all right, this is the best tool for you. Now, having said that, I can give you a hammer. That does not make you a carpenter. And I can give you this tool, and it is not tomorrow going to let you wake up and be the most positive guy on the face of the earth. Oh, what a beautiful day. Sunshine and roses. No, there's a lot of practice involved. Matter of fact, one of the tools I use, it takes 21 days of consecutive application to make it start working, to make it start changing you into a more positive mindset. Rumor has it that there may be someone in this group of 3 people who had to start that process over several times.
Just a few, probably all of us.
But that includes me. I had to start it 7 times before I got through the 21 days. We're so beat up with all this negativity in this world that it's difficult to get through that. If you're struggling with unhappiness, if you're struggling with negativity, I've got the tools to help you get over that hump and become a more positive, happier person in all aspects of your life. And that's, for me, has been the biggest and the greatest pleasure for me in coaching most of my clients.
Very nice.
So Tim, again, I can attest to that. Part of my relationship with Tim over the years is one thing. It started, I can't even remember how many years it's been now. I probably got 4 or 5 of them at this point. But a gratitude journal, and part of you create habits. And Tom and you and I, we're accountability partners. We meet on a regular basis on Monday mornings and go through a lot of stuff. And one of the things we've talked about is creating routines and habits. And I've got a routine, even when I don't have any reason to get up in the morning, which isn't what I always do. I get up at 5:30 in the morning now. I used to get up earlier than that when I had places to go, but now that I have nowhere to go, I still get up at 5:30, and I get up, and one of the first things I do is journal.
I do that after I get coffee.
Yeah, write down before coffee. Write down at least 3 things I'm grateful for from the following day, or something that happened the following day, or something I'm grateful for, looking forward to that day. The day I'm that I'm writing, but do that and to get myself started on the right foot. And I've been doing it for years now, and it's changed my outlook on things, and that's because of you, Tim, that got me started on that. So thank you.
You're welcome. One of the reasons I tell people, if you do it first thing in the morning, when you wake up in the morning, your balance sheet is at 0. You've woken up, you're no negative, no positive. You're just awake, unless you wake up with a headache or a hangover, but that's another story for another party. So you're at 0. Now, if you can start your day off on a positive note by journaling and getting that dopamine level up, getting your body into a high dopamine state, as you go through the day, things can happen and they don't bother you quite as much. You've got your defenses built up. However, if the first thing that happens when you put your foot out of bed is you step on the cat and the cat claws your leg and you got blood running down your leg and you kick the cat and you're like, and your whole day has a tendency to go that way. And for some of my clients, I have three particular clients right now who I require them to journal on gratitude 3 times a day, right? Just a couple of sentences, but they're having a tendency to cycle right now. That morning isn't enough for them. And it is so important because when we journal on gratitude, our body produces dopamine. And when our body is in a high dopamine state, we are more creative. All the learning centers in our brain are turned on. We're calmer when our significant other barks at us in the morning because they had a bad night's sleep. We're able to go, oh, I'm so sorry you feel that way, instead of right back. So it is good. Thank you, Frank, for saying that. But it is. I highly recommend that. If you don't take anything away from this show tonight, get a gratitude journal and just jot down 2 or 3. I call them G4s, and G4 just stands for grateful for. It's an abbreviation I put in my book.
Awesome. Good stuff.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Very much.
So how about
go ahead, Frank.
I was going to take us into the next one. You've been working on a program that Kent Jones and you started called Reboot.
Reboot.
And so tell us a little bit about the Reboot program and how you take that out and to speaking engagements and otherwise and utilize that as a way to get people to change their thinking and change the way they do things.
The whole idea behind Reboot, and it's an acronym, and just briefly, the acronym, the R is about recognize the need to make some changes. The E is educate yourself on not just how, but who can help you make those changes. That goes into the coaching. The B is about creating a belief system around them. The first O is update your operating system, the mental one. The second O is orchestrate your life, stop letting life orchestrate you, and that's that self-leadership piece. And then the T in Reboot is about testing. Each leg or each letter in the acronym has a triangle, 3 sides. If we go to the recognition triangle, there are 3 sides, 3 ways to recognize you need to make some changes. The first is professional recognition. A judge has said, son, you need to quit drinking and attend to AA meetings. A doctor has said, you need to quit smoking and eat right and exercise. A counselor said, you need to talk about your feelings so you don't have these anger issues. A professional has said, you need to make some changes in your life. And as long as that professional is in your life, you can make the changes. But quite often when that professional is out of your life, when the parole is over, we know what happens. The second side of that triangle is core relationships. Your spouse, your main core relationship, they know everything that needs to be fixed on us, and they have no problem telling us what to fix. And possibly we might do the same back for them. But all that does is create conflict. I may know I need to lose weight, and I'm working on losing weight, but when she tells me I have to lose weight, I'm like, stop it, leave me alone. How come you always got to tell me that, right? When we try to change someone that we're close to, we have a tendency to create greater conflict and less happiness. The third side of the recognition triangle is self-recognition. When you get it, when you understand you need to make some changes, then those changes can actually happen. You can change anything you want to change in your life, but not because somebody else told you to. You have to buy into it personally. The E, the education, there's education everywhere. But going back to what we said earlier, you can't read the ingredients from inside the bottle, and you cannot see your life while you're living it. You need to have a mentor coach in your life if you're going to make any change that's worthwhile. Now, the B, my favorite story on the belief system is the guy who puts the tightrope wire across Niagara Falls. Thousands of people come out to watch him, and he says, I know some of you are just here to see me fall. But how many of you believe I can walk across this little tiny rope across Niagara Falls? And people are like, yeah, yay, that's great. pulls a wheelbarrow up and he puts it on the tightrope and says, how many of you believe I can push the wheelbarrow across Niagara Falls? We're like, yeah. He says, great. Who's going to get in the wheelbarrow? Now there's silence, but then this little 8-year-old boy runs up and jumps in the wheelbarrow. He said, let's go, mister. Looks like fun. The tightrope walker, he looks down. He's like, son, I can't push you across here. He goes, what's wrong, mister? Don't you believe? There are so many people who get involved in something and they just don't believe in it. And they just struggle and struggle and struggle. We look at, so many people have gotten involved in MLMs because somebody has encouraged them into that MLM. It doesn't matter if it's a good one or a bad one or an in-between one, but somebody else has said, you can do this and you can make a lot of money at this, but their heart and their belief just isn't in it. Having that belief system is incredible, and it starts out with self-belief. The second side of that triangle is core relationship belief. You've got to have your core relationships on board with you if you're going to make any of these changes work. And then the third side of the belief triangle is what we call unsolicited belief. Unsolicited belief is, everyone lights up a room, some by walking in, others by walking out. That person who has that level of confidence when they walk into a room, people are just magnetically drawn to them. That's the type of confidence and belief that we're looking for to be successful. Say what you may, and I'm not trying to call you out or embarrass you, Frank, but you're that guy. When you walk in a room, you believe in what you're doing to a level that people are drawn to you. And it's not just because you're holding the free ticket jar for the lunch. You're a good guy, and you believe in what you're doing, and that belief draws people to you. The rest of it, the operating system, orchestrate your life, leadership lessons, the test, those are all designed to lock in those first lessons. But nothing can happen until there's self-recognition. Reboot doesn't, without the R, it'd just be e-boot, and then that's just weird.
True enough. So,
sharing that.
Thank you for asking.
So what do you see, Tim, is a one or two necessary skills as a business owner, whether you're a new business owner, you've been around for a long time, to either become successful or maintain a level of success?
Well, you guys have heard me say it before, but this fella got on the airplane. He had his wedding ring on his thumb. And I said, sir, I couldn't help but notice you got your wedding ring on the wrong finger. He said, son, I married the wrong woman. It all comes down to relationships. It all comes down to relationships. It doesn't matter, how many of it's getting business with someone simply because they have a product or service that works for us at the moment. But now it takes us 10 years to get them out of our life because they're that clinging, negative energy person. Before you get into business with someone, get to know them, regardless of what their product or service is. I don't care if they sell the best insurance in the world. I don't care if they have the best whatever. It's all about relationships. When you get into business, go out and build relationships. I'm watching so many people who just walk into rooms, sell. And maybe they'll get a sell. They approach 10 people, they sell 2, and they feel like it's a great day. But if you go in, you build relationships. Each of those people, the average person has 250 close relationships of people that they influence. And when you can go in and get to know these people and build a relationship, now all of a sudden you've got 3 sales through this person. You've got 5 sales through this person. You've got 12 through this person because you took the time to build relationships before you worried about making or closing the deal. And I think the second most important thing is confidence. You've got to believe. You have got to 100% be all into your product or service. You cannot walk in going, hey, you think you might like to have some of my stuff.
You want my thing that's pretty good?
It really is. I mean,
it's not bad.
I don't use it myself because I can't afford it. But if you'll buy it for me, maybe someday I'll be able to afford it.
I know it's not bad. People told me it's not bad.
So Tim, what's one thing that's helped you stay productive or keep things going with the current circumstances, with the shutdown from the pandemic and kind of the shift from being out? Because I know you, you and I, we're the type of people, we need to be out face to face, talking to people, meeting new people, making connections. So what have you done to help you stay productive when you're kind of stuck at home?
Zoom. Zoom. Zoom, FaceTime. All of my client interaction has moved to electronic version. But what I found out was I have more time because I'm not driving to this restaurant shop. The windshield time that I used to have. So now I have a choice on how do I want to spend that windshield time. I've enrolled in a course called Federal Income Secrets with Noah St. John. And also a gentleman right here, Mr. Tom Sellers, has also been helping me understand lead generation. Because for me, it was always about being live, whether it's live with a client out to coffee, live on a stage, but it's one and done. Now, with the things I have memorized, and we won't get started on that tonight, I can do those all day long. I can do 8 back-to-back presentations in a day, but that's only 8. So what I'm learning during this period of time is how to take all of this content, lock it into videos, and Tom, in our conversation the other day, you just blew my mind because I'm thinking, okay, PowerPoints. I need to do all these PowerPoints. I need to get all this done. And you're like, why don't you just do videos? Like, I can do that? Oh, wow. So my content, I was always concerned because I thought I had to write everything down and create all this paper. People don't want any more information today. There's information everywhere. We're on information overload. They want transformation. They want to hear the stories that someone else has done it so that they know they can too. And that transformation is what I'm learning to developing, that transformation message to bring my message down more concise, to cut out a lot of the information and make a difference in people's lives in a much shorter time frame.
And your partner Kent Jones has joined us and says, and he might be digging at you a little bit. He says the remote system is an incredible program for people who are going through a midlife crisis.
But he's true.
I know he's right. I know he's right.
We developed this for. He's such a big part of this, and he's without Kent, reboot would not be. And it's whatever you need. Is it in your faith? Your faith life is struggling. You need a reboot to get back to church. Is it in your relationship? You need to go on another honeymoon. Is it in your business? Reboot can be applied to any area of your life or your entire life. It's a good system to use when you're struggling with a new hairdo, right, Coach? But he was over here about an hour before the show, and we were chatting about something, and I think he just wants to be the best looking ball guy, so he's encouraging me to let it grow.
So moving the competition away. I get it. All right, we believe it or not, this hour has flown by. We got about 10, 11 minutes left.
And I haven't even said one poem yet.
We got a few more questions, and even if we didn't, we could just say, Tim, talk, and he would just go. And
right. Tell us a story.
Once upon a time, a long
right.
time ago.
So, Tim, what advice would you give to those considering working with a coach or mentor?
Be open. Don't make the coach dig for information. If you're coming to a coach, sit down and be transparent. I cannot tell you the number of clients it's taken me 4 or 5 sessions to get to that block, that thing they really want to fix. If you're going to hire a coach, you hire somebody you trust. B, treat them like you trust them. All right. I've heard stuff. Oh my gosh, I've heard stuff, but it's the stuff that helps us get them to the next level. One particular client who came had been fairly successful. Over the last 20, 25 years, he had made revenue with his company of $300,000 to $325,000 a year. Came in and we're talking, he hired me and we're doing over business stuff, but I could always see there was another issue at play here. When that issue finally came out, the dam burst, and not like the one in Michigan, but the dam burst, and today he's closing in on $1 million of revenue this year. Over one little block that if he would have told me earlier, it would have saved a lot of trouble. So be transparent. Let them know what you struggle with. Let them know what you're good at. And the coach is going to help you, hire the people to fill in your weaknesses and train you to really play to your strengths.
Okay. So what's one skill you see as a necessity for a business owner to either become or maintain success? Become successful or maintain success? What's that one key component that people need?
I go back to the 3 elements of war. As an infantry officer, I learned these very young: move, shoot, and communicate. Right? If you can't move, you cannot meet the enemy. If you can't shoot, you can't beat the enemy. But if you can't communicate, you can't do anything. So for me, it all comes down to communication. So many people do not communicate their value appropriately. I struggle with communicating my value appropriately. A group that I have been involved with for about 4 years, they sent me a text the other day and said, "Hey, could you talk about this on your radio show?" I meet with these people every 2 weeks. They know I'm not on the radio anymore, or at least they should know I'm not on the radio anymore, that I'm out doing live work. They should also know Kent's still a close friend of mine, and I can encourage him to maybe do something for them on the radio. But people don't listen. And that communication skill, 2 ears, 1 mouth, it's incredibly important to use them in proportion.
Awesome.
Absolutely. Well, we are closing down to about our last 8 minutes or so. Coach, for those that are watching now or those that will be watching over the next couple of days, and they would like to get involved with you coaching wise, how would they get a hold of you?
Well, Tim at coachpapa.com. TIM at coachpapa, COACHPAPA.com.
Very good.
LinkedIn /Coach Papa. Facebook.com/Coach Papa. Or just look for the blue car that says Coach Papa.
I'm noticing a trend.
Branding is it's an important piece of what we do. But the bottom line is how can I help you? Why should they? Not how can they, but why should they get a hold of me? If they're unhappy at any area of their life, whether it's relationships, their business, their self-respect, if they're unhappy in any area of their life, this is where I can help. Right? I can help them understand how to do a few certain things, how to use a few certain tools to find a more positive, happier place in their life. And that translates into success time and time again. But Tim at coachpapa.com. Reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn each and every day. I actually use it a little bit more than Facebook now. And stop by, just drive through Johnsburg and ask anybody, "Hey, where's Stewart's house?" It's over there.
Or head up to the Hidden Pearl.
Hidden Pearl.
Right.
I haven't been there yet. I just haven't been to town yet. My new default behavior is staying home.
Yeah, no kidding. Got to get out a little bit. But that's great stuff. So one final thing. Tim? Got to put my glass on. How do you see things changing after we begin to open up business again? What do you think is going to be different coming out of this?
Thank you. I do these little videos on LinkedIn, and the other day, I heard somebody say, "I can't wait for things to get back to normal." And as I stopped and thought about it, what was happening before this pandemic was not normal. We were out of control. The bank account had taken over the relationship accounts in so many areas of our life. And right now, we're approaching normal. We're back at the dinner table with our family. We're hugging our kids or our family members when we take a break from work. We are finding a new normal right now. How do I see it being different? I see myself doing more of this type of interaction, even when it's opened up. I think the ability to share, and one thing that my grandson, the other day, he comes over, we're talking on FaceTime, and he goes, Papa, would you like to color? And he's holding the crayon up to the phone. And I said, I'd love to color, Papa. And then he looks at me and he goes, Papa, you're just TV. Well, when we're just TV, people can turn us off. They can mute us. They can do other things while they appear to be paying attention to us. But when we can engage them, when we can give them stuff in rapid fire, if you think back to our rapid fire segment on Two Ball Guys and a Microphone, sometimes that was the most fun because you had a minute to talk about or 30 seconds to talk about a topic, and you nailed it. You got it out there, and we need to do that. So I see coming out of this for me, I will be doing more stuff virtually even when I don't have to. But I will get back on the road. I love traveling. I love getting on stage and meeting new people. But at the same time, I'm going to take advantage of this new, more efficient way of doing business.
Very nice. Well, Coach, I want to thank you, as I'm sure Frank does as well, for joining us and putting a ton of value out there.
Did you find the applause button yet, Tom?
I didn't. I got to install one, I think.
We got a guy.
We got a guy. You gave us a ton of value, really good stuff to work with, and we can't thank you enough for that. And for those of you who don't know Coach Papa, especially if you're here local, do yourself a favor and have a cup of coffee with this man. He will brighten your day, and if it needs to, if you see yourself in need of some guidance, that's a great guy right there.
Thank you, Tom. I appreciate that.
No problem. The bill is on the way.
No, he's washing windows.
Exactly. Frank, any last minute shots here?
Thanks to Tim for joining us tonight and filling in airspace for us. Tom, you got a break. You didn't have to talk much tonight.
Right.
Yeah. Normally we have to keep each other talking. It's easy to fire a question at Tim and let him go.
Just sit back and listen. Right.
Thank you, Tim, for spending an hour with us. Thank you for all you do for the local community.
Absolutely.
Myself, my wife, Christina. We really enjoy our relationship that we have with you in April. And thanks for being on with us tonight. And I hope all the people watching and commenting enjoyed and got a few nuggets out of this as well.
Thank you. I appreciate you guys so much. I mean, this Frank and I have become really great friends over the years, and Tom, your and my relationship has grown so much, well beyond what we do professionally together. So I just look forward to continuing this relationship. And in order to do that, I'm going to stay home and wear my mask. So I stay happy, healthy, and wealthy. Let's go with that. Wealthy.
There you go. Well, for us at our 2 cents, and those of us on the panel tonight, we'll just call us three bad golfers. We're thankful that you joined us.
That remark.
Share this with your friends if you would. That's how this grows. That's how people find out about what we're doing. If you have topics you would like us to cover, by all means, put it in the suggestions. Leave us a little note. We will have Chris Miller on with us next week. I'll put a blurb out about that later in the week. And we will, like I say, mark on your calendar. We should have an answer. What do you think, Frank? Monday? What date we're going to move this to?
Yes.
we're going to be at a new time, so those of us that are bad golfers can play our bad golf in our golf league on Thursdays. So for all of you who've joined us, thanks for spending an hour with us. To Coach Papa, thanks for enlightening us and helping us with some good thinking. Until next week, we are our 2 cents. I'm Frank. I'm Frank. He's Frank.
Let's
I'm
be
Tom.
frank. Let's all be frank. I'm Frank. You're Frank.
Yeah, can I be Frank?
You be Frank. I'll go ahead and be me.
All right.
Thank you, everybody.
Have a
I'm
good
Coach
night.
Papa, and I do approve this message. God bless. Travel safe.